Hello, goddess. Welcome back. This is Andrea with You Are Mind, Body, Soul. And in this space, this temple space, I guide goddesses to bridge the mind, body, and soul through psychosomatic education, consciousness reconditioning, as well as alchemy and energetics. Come on in. Welcome back. I'm back with a new look. It's been a minute since I've filmed. It's been a few weeks. I took some time during Mercury retrograde just to stretch out, to actually get some work done on the new course that I'll share with you a bit further in this video. And of course, to just kind of take some rest. So I hope that you have been enjoying the content. I am doing this topic today. I briefly mentioned this in one of the videos that I recently posted. And it's just so interesting because I briefly mentioned this topic. And ever since I spoke on this topic, it has come up multiple times with other spiritual teachers that I follow. So I decided that clearly the universe is sending me a message to talk more about this and to dive more about this. And it actually coincides with the course that I am in the process of creating, which is on pre-launch, and you can actually check that out on yambs.co. You will not find this course at a lower price, and it will change your life. The content that I am placing in this is a life's work. So check that out. It is still on pre-launch at a very affordable price. So before I get too deeply into this topic, I want to remind you to please like the video, please share this video so that other goddesses such as yourself can receive these transmissions. And please remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you get updated when I post most dope content like this every Monday, because apparently you have to hit the notification bell. And I also want to thank you and welcome all of my new subscribers. Wonderful. So let's go ahead and get into it. We are talking about heart, brain health, and connection. This is moving out of the mind, the mental realm, the masculine realm, and learning how to trust your heart space energy. It is so important for so many reasons. The power of the heart, the accuracy of the heart is so much more profound in the way in which we can affect change in our life, that it is so important that we learn this skill as goddesses. I remember for a lot of my life, I moved through life with my masculine energy from the mental realm. I'm a very intelligent woman with a lot of education. And so for most of my life, I relied on my mental energy to guide me. But as I grow in my wisdom and as my ability to affect change through multiple aspects of my human existence, my human facility, we have a mind, a body, as well as a soul. My life has just become more dynamic. And so that is why I created this course so that I could teach you all of these skills to clarify your emotional frequencies, open up your heart space, and to step out of mental habits that leave us in these cycles that really don't take us anywhere. As a person that has a foundation in psychology and molecular and microbiology, the power of the mind I recognize is it's so profound, but when we step outside of that and we step into other fields such as spirituality, biology, biochemistry. There are just so many different things that we begin to learn that are not just structured in that masculine paradigm. And the other thing that's important to know is that psychology, the field itself, was created by a particular demographic. Okay, standardized psychology. And so only approaching life from the mental realm can be limiting. And so, what I want to do with this course that I created and what I want to do in this video today is to bridge the gap between the heart and the mind by bringing in some other concepts. But I also want to stay I still want to stay connected to the core center for me, which is founded in science and psychology. So it's going to be a fun topic. I'm going to get a little geeky with you guys. I forgot to grab my whiteboard. So hopefully I'll be okay. You guys will be okay with the visuals that I am trying to express to you. So, first of all, let's start with the mind space. Okay. So, in this channel, you guys know that I always talk about how your personality creates your personal reality, right? And what is your personality? So, when I'm speaking of personality, I'm talking about something that runs deeper than what we talk about in standardized psychology. But keeping that in mind, one of the ways in which you can observe your personality is doing things like the MBTI. Okay, I love the MBTI. I think it's wonderful. It's a collection of 16 different personality types that they group human beings into. I am an INFJ. I've been an INFJ since I first took the test back in high school. So you may want to check that out. And it turns out that we're actually the rarest personality type on the planet. So you can tell a lot by your standardized personality according to psychology. But when we are deepening into deeper realities, deeper understandings of who we are, and we are taking higher perspectives of who we are, we want to zoom out and look at things from a different angle. So when I say that I'm talking about your personality and how it frames your personal reality, I'm talking about your entire vibrational makeup. So that is how you think about things, how you are processing and looking at life. That is your perception. Okay, so if you are looking at an event, an experience, and whenever you look at it, you recognize that it is working for you. So no matter what occurs in your life, what occurs in your reality, you're taking a look at things as the glass half full versus not empty. Okay, you're seeing things optimistically. Okay, and when you are developing your personality or you're moving through life with the personality that you have, there is a certain filter of perception that you have, which is your how you look at things, how you perceive things. It originates in your mind, okay, and how you're framing things. But then that also affects your body hormonally. Because if you are thinking about things negatively, you're going to be emitting stress hormones in your body, which we've talked about cortisol and its effects specifically on the feminine body. We talked about that in the video Feminine Women Live Longer, part one and part two. So it's going to affect you hormonally. So that's on a physiological level. It's going to affect you neurologically. So if anytime something happens to you that's challenging, your automatic feeling response is to be stressed or to see yourself as a victim or to see things as harder than they actually need to be. You are wiring your body to have this neurological response that is going to wear you out over time. And so, therefore, your personal reality, which is actually the reality that you have in your body psychologically and biochemically, your personal reality is one where you are feeding a stress feedback loop, a feedback process. Okay. So, this entire feedback process and this entire feedback spectrum all starts with how we choose to frame our lives. And I will say that the way in which we frame our lives, it changes over time depending on what happens to us over the course of our lifetime. But as we become higher conscious beings and we tap into our goddess frequency, which is our home frequency, our original authentic source, we are then able to step out of the limiting paradigm of what our ego has created for us and this world that we create from our ego. And then we get to step into our higher mind and our goddess consciousness to be able to break us out of those habits. So there are the habits that we create by default and without putting in any inner work to what's happening in our reality, what's occurring for us, what keeps happening, how we respond to it. You have to take the time to do your inner work and to do your inner research to step outside of those paradigms, those habits, in order to create a higher perspective. Because your personal reality is only going to develop from the vantage point, the perspective in which you choose to exist in your consciousness. All right. So it's important for us to be able to have this heart-based experience of life and coming out of the mind, because the mind can get us caught up into some toxic loops. Trust me, especially if you haven't done your shadow work. And so this video, I'm offering you the inner work to go ahead and do that. So for me personally, I used to struggle a lot with my personality. I was very moody. Okay. And this would show up in the form of me complaining in my mind, in my mental realm, about things, simple things, just having to go to work or having to deal with certain people that were annoying me. And I developed compassion and resiliency towards those things. And as I started to do that, and I started to see my life and the cup of my life as half full, I was able to be more compassionate with certain people. And I also was able to draw healthier boundaries so that I was not always being drained and depleted. So when you are able to nurture your inner environment and you are able to command the channels of your body and the way which you mentally respond to them, it's like turning up the brightness on your internal life. Okay. And we can do that specifically by working with the heart space. So I used to have a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, mainly because I'm an empath. And so I don't know if you have the experience of being affected by other people's emotions. It's important, especially if you are an empath, to be doing this heart space inner work and to also be learning how to master the currents of energy in your body. And that's what we're doing in this course right now as we speak. All right. So I had to do a lot of healing of inner child work, and I had to do a lot of brain training for myself, a lot of heart training. Um, and in the course, I share a little bit more about, my issues with abandonment and how I started to work through those, and how I recognized that they were showing up in different relationships that I was having, creating these toxic bonds, these trauma bonds, and these codependencies, and how I really started to work through that. So I moved out of this emotional, vibrational, personal reality of having the habit of falling into anxiety and depression, to being able to locate that in my body and to be able to work through that. And I teach you exactly how to do it in the course. All right. So, what we have to do is to be stewards of our personal reality by learning how to reset these personal pathways to sensitize ourselves to the emotional currents that are moving in our body, so that then we could sit with them in the comfort or in the discomfort and shift those and alchemize those into things that are actually working for us. For me, this took years and years and years for me. I sacrificed some of the peak years of my life. I'm 36 years old right now. I do still feel like I'm finally really starting to peak out. I love the way that my body looks and feels when I'm practicing my craft. I love my mental sharpness. I always have a hunger to learn for more, a yearning for more. Like, I feel passionate. And it took me years of sacrifice, specifically of dopamine, of cheap dopamine. So I really had to unplug myself from the world and from society to an extent. I kind of stepped back. I made myself scarce, and I really focused on my emotional habits and emotional discipline, as well as physical discipline of eating the things that were good for my body, mental discipline of learning, focusing on my inner work, reading, being a steward, and studying myself. And it took me years and years and years of practice to be able to embody new pathways and new channels inside of me that shifted me into one where I'm always in a state of leveling up and growing. I'm not saying that challenging emotions don't come in, and that unexpected life experiences don't occur. But what I am saying is that you can equip yourself with the tools, simple tools that don't take a lot of time. It's all about habits, and it is all about the journey to embodying your home, your goddess frequency. All right. So my experience has really just showed me that I can adapt a consciousness and I can shift my personality through these specific steps to enhance my frequency of one, to make it one that I am able to hold more joy in my life and I am able to hold space for more abundance without feeling like I am spilling out and needing to start over from a foundational point. So I can expand and expand and expand without feeling like I'm going backwards. So there used to be a time in my life when I first started doing my inner work where I would learn something and I would like, for boundaries example, for example, is an inner work skill. I had to practice boundaries. I had to learn how to have healthy boundaries. And when I first experienced this, when I first learned like that boundaries were very important, when I started to do my bioenergetic work, things come up to test you. And I would move back and forth between healthy boundaries and unhealthy boundaries. Although I was aware of what healthy boundaries look like, and I went through the exercises that I created for myself to establish those, what they were, I was very clear about them. When it comes to practicing, which is a reflection of your ability to embody those things, that takes even more time. And I wouldn't call it a mistake, but I could call it stepping back into the old state of who I was versus, leveling up and not allowing the old personality that I used to have to take over, and where I would put myself in a situation where I compromise my boundaries. So essentially, what I am saying is that anytime you are developing a new skill or a new emotional habit, or whenever you are trying to level up your personality, it's something that takes time, it takes practice, and it is not a linear process. But we want to embody these things. We want to be able to embody these frequencies, and we want to be able to grow and expand permanently into our new stages of personality. And that requires practice. And it also requires dedication. Excuse me. All right. Um, so what I want to talk about is the brain. All right. So the brain has multiple different aspects. Okay. We have our old animalistic brain, which is the reptilian brain, which is where the amygdala is. And this is what governs our automatic emotional response. So when we were cave people developing and surviving, living with dinosaurs and having to hunt for our food, there was actual real danger amok. Okay. And so our brains were wired in a way that allowed us to be sensitive to threats to our well-being. Okay. These are our ancestors. We have that wiring of our ancestors inside of our bodies. And even though we have access to all of these technologies and these different things, you've got media, you've got things telling you, create the life of your dreams, all these pictures that we are exposed to. Even though we have these things in our perception, does not mean that we are wired differently. The human evolution process is a very slow process. So we still have this makeup where we are wired to survive. So no matter how much you talk about thriving and we talk about, stepping into your goddess frequency and all of this, we are still those animals. We still have that ancient animalistic aspect about ourselves, which I think is so beautiful. And I love being in the raw, passionate expression of that animalistic wild woman nature. You could call it the wild woman nature. And a great book for that is Women Who Run with the Wolves. It's one of my Bibles. Absolutely love that book. It really helps us to understand, our natural beings of how we are, particularly as female beings in the wild of humanity. Okay. So we are wired for survival in our brains, but the brain is developing out of just that reptilian aspect. We have our prefrontal cortex. And then the brain also does some incredible things. But when it comes to making the major decision points, these choice points in our lives where we have to make a logical decision, what we want as goddesses is to be able to tap into our heart frequency to be able to guide us. I know that for a long time, I dealt with cognitive dissonance. This is what they call it in psychology. Cognitive dissonance for my witches, my tarot readers, is the Eight of Swords energy. That is when you are stuck in a position and you can't move, you can't make a clear decision because of all of the mental chatter. It's like your mind's telling you to do one thing over here on this hand, and then it's telling you to do something else, but then your heart's telling you to do this, something else, and you just can't get them all to be in alignment, right? We want to evolve out of those experiences, or we want to be evolved out of being immobilized by these experiences of being trapped by need to make a decision, but not being able to, because your ability to thrive is contingent on your ability to make healthy decisions that are made from a higher consciousness position that will continue to move your journey along higher and higher, more authentically aligned paths. Okay. And so that's why it's important to be able to use the brain as a tool to support you rather than feeling like you are governed totally by everything that your mind is telling you. Because as we grow up and as we develop, the mind loves shortcuts. The mind is just a computer system. It's just a computing system that is inputting information from your environment about the city that you were born in, the household that you were brought up in, the school that you went to, the friend circle that you have, the education that you have, the experiences that you went through. That is all that it is. And as we grow and we mature through our lives, we can become more sophisticated about the things that we input into this computer system so that it runs smoothly in an automated process, just like a computer would. That is all that the brain is supposed to do, so that we can make these clear decisions, we can make solid decisions, and we can surrender to the magic of where our heart is pulling us. Okay. Now, brain waves, we talk about brain waves in the course. Okay. We have 4 different brain waves that this computer system, the mental system, operates from. And with those 4 different levels of brain waves, we are able to tap into different states of consciousness. Okay. So an EEG, okay, I think it's an electroencephalogram or something like that. Don't quote me on it. But what it does is it measures the rate of your brain, just like how an EKG measures your heart rate. They have machines that actually measure your brain function. And when you're hooked up, like if you've ever had to go for a sleep study or something like that, you will be hooked up to that, right? So there are 4 different waves that the brain functions on, okay? And in the highest wave, it is the noisiest wave. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm in my logical mind, but in my heart space, and I'm determined to get this message out to you. There's a lot of activity as I pull forth and I recall information that I have written in my notes, things that have happened in my past. These images are coming up. It's like all these things being sparked and being lit up for me to talk to you about. So my brain is very active. There's a lot of chatter. Okay. And then so it's very fast. You'll see the lines are very close together. This is when I wish I had my whiteboard, but it's okay. You'll see the lines, they're like pretty fast. Okay. And as we go into deeper and deeper states of focus and relaxation, those brain waves actually get longer, higher, and lower. So the frequency of the way in which the brain is pulsating begins to slow down until we reach into those deep states of sleep, like REM sleep. Okay. And from a scientific aspect, when you become a master of your vibrational frequency by activating your goddess energy and bringing awareness to that, you can start to control the way in which your brain is responding to reality, and you can slow it down. So, what we're doing in the course Vibrational Voodoo is we are brain training, and we are shifting the frequency of our brain so that we can create more meditative states, and then we can command the states of reality and the frequency in which we are living in our bodies. Okay. And I talk more about that in the course. Now, the heart, the reason that we really want to start living through the heart, okay, is because the heart is a lot more sophisticated than the brain. The heart has its own electrical system. And unlike the brain, the electrical system of the heart actually expands out to a vast distance beyond our physical body. And so that is why we are able to be sensitive to things around us. You could take a mother, for example, okay? Her heart is entrained to what that baby needs. It is sensitive, it can feel, it can receive information a lot quicker than the brain would. And there's a lot of research that has been done, a lot of scientific studies and experiments that have shown that the field of energy, the electromagnetic field of energy that is exuded through the heart space, goes out beyond this physical body, and it brings in information much more efficiently than the brain does. So, for example, there is this one study where they had these people hooked up to a heart monitor, and they were being shown images on a computer. I think the experiment went like that. They were being shown images on a computer, and what they were doing was measuring the heart's response to the images that were occurring on the computer. And after a while, so there were negative images, there were positive images. And after a while, the heart would start to register the emotional response to that picture before the picture was coming up on the screen. Okay. So the sensory, the magic of the heart, the sensory response to the images was occurring before the image even came up on the computer. And that is how powerful and how profound the heart is. But we would never know that because we give so much of our power away to the mental realm, which is governed by the ego, and it is governed by these default patterns and processes that we allow ourselves to live through and get away with. But when you level up into your goddess frequency, which is what we are all about on this channel, we can move beyond all of that. Okay. So the heart is so important also because it is the center of your energy center. So we have seven foundational chakras. These are our base spiritual organs. And right at the center of that is the heart. So there's a heart in the center, there are three below and three above. Okay. And so the heart is the center of the physical and the spiritual realm as we know it. A lot of times we live in that baser, lower level aspect, which is the survival aspect. That's where your adrenals are. So, like if you've got adrenal fatigue, you're tired, anxious, depressed, it's because you're living in that base level a bit too much. Okay. Financial issues, you feel stuck and stagnant in that way, or if you're just like overly physically focused, focus too much on food, like it can manifest in different ways when we don't have that balance between the upper and the lower realms. Conversely, we can be too focused on the upper realms. I was talking about this earlier in the course, where you're just like blissed out and you're high, and you're just kind of out of tune with reality because you're just super high, you're just tuned out, tapped out. Okay. When you are moving through your heart center, you're actually moving through the center of your being. And when your heart is open and it is flexible, okay, and it is responsive Okay, which means you are perceiving, you're fully processing your emotions in your environment, and it is responsive. You're able to respond to your reality from your upper and your lower realms. And that is supposed to be the nature of how the heart is supposed to serve us. It is supposed to serve as a conduit so that if we need to insert magic into the equation, we can tap into our intuition. We want to connect to our higher purpose. We have access to our crown energy. We want to speak our truths. We have access to that channel and that pathway, and not having those heart blocks that close us up and then make us sensitive and susceptible to the brain's uncertainty, into the ego's chatter. And this is why it's so important to have an open heart space. And this is one of the things that took me so long to learn. But the stuff that I'm teaching you in this course, if somebody would have put this, told me and gave me this information the way that I'm giving it to you, I'm telling you, I would have been like a millionaire by now. But I'm spiritually wealthy anyway, so it's all good. I am abundant. Okay. And so are you, because that heart space vibration and clearing up the channels in the body it creates abundance and it creates flow. And we talk about the emotional currents in our life, the electrical currents, all of the different currents that flow through the body, and having open channels, which brings in more abundance. All right. So let me see, what else do I have here? So we have this higher mind that we can tap into when we open up the channel and we open up the pathway of our hearts, rather than getting stuck and bogged down because we have like this shell over us. I was expressing earlier how, when I had my heart block, it manifested in so many different ways. It manifested and energetically, and like this shield that I had over my heart. I used to have these pains in my back, like right underneath my scapula. Like when I tell you I went through so many things with my heart chakra that I had to work through, the dedication of that, it really just changed my life and working through those things. Okay. So the last thing that I want to talk about is emotional resilience. Okay. And your ability to be emotionally resilient, which is also a reflection of your emotional maturity and your heart space flexibility, is going to also shift your personal reality because it is going to change you biochemically. So everything, one hand washes the other. Everything is a dynamic, harmonious reflection and mold of one another. So, becoming emotionally resilient is when you are confronted with a challenging situation. And like, let's say you're in a grocery store and you are shopping and you're doing your thing, and then all of a sudden an emergency happens in the aisle next to you, and the alarms go off, and now you have to leave the grocery store, right? And you're totally spooked in that moment, but now you get in your car, you've left the situation behind, and you go home and you are still frazzled. Your heart rate is still up. You've got anxiety, like your entire night, your entire day is thrown off, right? Because of that experience that has now been resolved back at the store, and now you are at home and it's still affecting you. So you haven't brought yourself back to your baseline state of frequency. You're still kind of anxious, you're nervous, you've got all these cortisol hormones flooding into your body. What we want to do is to teach our bodies how to be emotionally resilient. And this is why it's important to work through inner child trauma, which we do in this course, actually through self-hypnosis. And we want to learn how to bring ourselves emotionally current. So if you are consistently and constantly stressed out, you just have a certain baseline level of stress in your body, it is because you're not training your emotional feeling habits to be resilient and to be responsive to the present reality in which you sit in. Okay. If you are taking your past and bringing it into the present reality, and it is governing how you are energetically responding. If you're always focused on the future and things that have not happened yet, and you're being stressed out about it, then you're not being emotionally flexible. There's one thing to be stimulated and to be inspired by what you are creating and what you are focusing on in your future. And then there is another thing to be governed by things that are occurring in your future that you're not putting forth energy and focus towards. What it does is it creates this extra energy in your body that makes it very challenging for your systems. And so we want to be very cognizant of the frequency in which we are existing in on a daily basis. Okay. So in the course, I teach you how to work with your resident frequency, which is the frequency in which you carry on a daily basis, so that you can begin to level up your frequency, expand your frequency to hold more positivity, more joy, more feelings of abundance, happiness, juiciness, all the goddess energy that we want. We learn specifically a process to doing that, and to elevating that frequency and holding it and maintaining it. When I was younger, I used to get like really high, and then I would just come crashing down. And then I would work my way up, but I would go like really fast, really high before like I had the consciousness to be able to hold bliss and to hold joy and peace in my body. And then I would come crashing, and then I would come crashing back down. And it is because I did not have the skills to align with the energetic heights that I was living in. And I didn't have the inner work and the inner presence and the emotional sophistication to be able to deal with that. It's so, for example, it's like a celebrity that reaches these. So let's say we take a celebrity that's like poached, okay? That someone that can sing really well, came from nothing, knew nothing about money, knew nothing about fame, and then all of a sudden they're poached, okay? And they're just pumped with attention, they're pumped with money, they're pumped with fame, and now they're living in this big mansion, but they're still living inside of this personal reality, this body with all of the trauma, with the limiting beliefs surrounding things that happened in their childhood, and they haven't worked through all of that stuff. But now on your field view in your realm, when you look out, you're existing in all of this stuff, but energetically they're not mature, they're not at that level, right? These people fall, they're like falling stars, so to speak, right? So what we want to do is we want to expand ourselves, expand our frequency, so that we are energizing ourselves. We are shining our own light from the inside out via our inner work to create our own personal reality and our own stardom, whatever that means for you and whatever it is you're trying to accomplish for your life. It could just be having more pleasure and feeling good in your body. That's what stardom could be for you. Or maybe you do actually want to be famous and live on stage. Y'all know I'm going to be on TED Talk one day, so keep watching. I'm calling it. I'm calling it into existence. So whatever that means for you. And while I'm on the topic, just make sure that whatever you're inspired by is something that you truly want. Make sure that you're being authentic to yourself. Make sure that you're focusing on becoming the most beautiful, delicious version of yourself, and not just trying to be a knockoff copy of somebody else. Check out my video on how to be more authentic. That dropped in the recent past, so you can look at that video as well. Okay. So when it comes to emotionally resilient, we want to be able to bounce back from challenging experiences versus allowing them to shut us down, where we are no longer functioning for like weeks and months on end. I remember, so one thing that I learned with my masculine energy from a relationship that I used to be in, this guy that I used to date, I got like some bad news or something happened to me one day. And he was like, he was like, you got 1 day, 2 days max to be sad about this, to be, you know, knocked down by this. But then you need to let it go, and you need to bounce back. And this was a Taurus. A shout out to my Taurus. I think we're about to be in Taurus season, or we are in Taurus season. or we're like on the cusp. And this was a Taurus, very Taurus stuff, which is I love Taurus guys. Um, he was like, you need to bounce, you need to let it go, you need to bounce back. So that was my first lesson in emotional resilience, was in that relationship. And so obviously, as a goddess activated in masculine and feminine energy, they're both on point, they're both strong. And in the academy, everything we do, we focus on how we are integrating our masculine and feminine energy. So, as that being my first lesson in emotional resilience, that's something that I always took with me. But we want to be flexible and we want to feel. So, when you are emotionally resilient, you are deeply feeling your emotions, you're emoting, you are crying, you are expressing. You are releasing what needs to be released. You are totally and deeply enjoying pleasurable experiences and not just the cheap dopamine. We're truly and deeply enjoying pleasure in our bodies. Okay. And we are training ourselves for that through this process. Um, so another sign that you want to work on your emotional resilience is when you are numbing yourself out. So if you are, participating in addictive behaviors, smoking, drinking, binging on anything, sugar, television, sex, whatever it is, then you want to shift your emotional feeling state, your resident feeling vibration, to one where you can actually experience pleasure in your body that has not been artificially created by some kind of substance that you are dependent on outside of yourself. And the only way to do that, again, is through inner work. You can't, there's no shortcut to inner work. And again, as I said before, that's something that I took years to sacrifice. Okay. And I'm not saying that I was like the Virgin Mary, although celibacy has been a big part of that sacrifice that I've created in my life, because I want to make sure, it's always been my desire in my life that I am a full and a powerful expression of, and a clear channel of what God wants me to be in this world and in this physical world, so that when I go back home and I go into the spiritual realm and I reincarnate, when I come back, I can be an even more authentic version of myself next lifetime. And I will hopefully have all of these lessons inside of my vibration, so that life would just be even more juicy the next time around. Let me see what else I have here. Um, so we don't want to be numbed out. We don't want to be succumbing. We want a healthy baseline um, vibration that we exist in daily. Okay. We want to experience the highs of life and the juiciness of life and be able to hold space for the abundance of that. And we also want to have control over our addictions and the things that numb us out emotionally. Okay. You never want to be numb emotionally. You never want to feel like you are overburdened by an emotional situation. There are ways of clearing these emotions out of your currency. Okay. Just looking at my notes. So, there are actually scientific ways in which you can see how emotionally resilient you are and how healthy your heart rate is. So, if you have a fitness tracker or a fitness watch, I want you to look at heart rate variability and check that out and record that. So, that's a little homework assignment for those of you that have a fitness watch. You want to look at your HRV. All right. So I hope that you all enjoyed this training. I hope to see you inside of the course, Vibrational Voodoo. You can check that out on yambs.co. This has been so much fun. I am sending you all the love, and I will catch you in the next one. One love.